All right, I want to talk about one of the most important things that you can do with your business, but it's also potentially the most dangerous if you don't get it right. It'll easily lead you into a lifetime of difficulty and regret, and it will increase the likelihood of your failure. So, that thing that we're going to talk about here today is partnerships. How do you find a business partner, and how do you create a business relationship that serves you, that will serve the business, that can stand the test of time? And in particular, what I want to talk about today are three painful lessons that I've had to learn the very hard way over the years. Some of them more recently than others, but over the span of my entrepreneurial career, I've actually had fairly good success overall with partnership relationships. However, every single time I've had a business fail, it's been off the back of a bad relationship, a bad partnership, where there were red flags that I didn't see, or I chose not to acknowledge, or I chose to convince myself they weren't as big of a problem as they were. And then ultimately, what always ends up happening is you look back and the things that you thought were a problem in the beginning end up being big problems in the end. And this general rule has always served me well, which is that which starts hard, end hard, right? If it starts hard, it ends hard. If it starts easy, it stays pretty easy. So what I want to share are these three lessons that have stuck out from different relationships over the past. I'm not going to name any names or anything like that. But number one is small rules, big problems. So what I mean by this is people who are willing to break small rules will ultimately lead to really big problems. One of the most important aspects, virtues, things, characteristics to look for in a partner is integrity. Integrity, the way I define it, is you do what you say. Your word is your bond. And this is a non-negotiable, because a partnership is a lot like a marriage. You have to have deep trust in this person to operate in your best interest in a responsible fiduciary way. And there's no getting around that. No matter how well you write the contract, no matter what kind of control mechanisms you put into place, at the end of the day, you need to trust that person. And in my experience, people who are willing to break small rules lead to really big problems. And it's a corollary of the Bible verse, he who can be entrusted with the small things can be entrusted with the big things. The inversion of that, as Charlie Munger says, always invert, right? The inversion of that is he who cannot be trusted with the small things cannot be trusted with the big things. And so when you see somebody breaking small rules, little inconsequential things, and you can be relatively certain that it's just a matter of time until they start breaking bigger and bigger things, or they finally overstep and that thing that once was small now becomes big. All right. A really good example of this is going to seem like a weird one, but not paying your parking tickets. Now, that might not seem like a big one, right? Like when you go and you park here in the cities, if you don't pay the parking meter, right, you get a parking ticket. Now, that is one of those things. You're breaking a small rule, and yeah, it's not a very big deal in the grand scheme of things. Like you're not going to get caught 80% of the time, so you get free parking 80% of the time. And then when you do get caught, it's like a $50 bill. And so honestly, you're probably better off from a financial perspective just to get caught, get the bill once out of every 15 times you do the thing, rather than paying for the parking every single time. But the principle of the matter is what matters here. It's not about what makes the most fiduciary financial sense. It's about doing what's right. It's about being a good citizen. It's about following the rules and setting a good example and not breaking the social fabric, the social construct that we've all agreed to. And that might sound like a small thing, but I promise it's these small things, these small little justifications that then lead to, oh, let me just take a little bit of money out of the business. Just $15 here to pay for my lunch this one time that actually didn't have anything to do with business. One time I'm going to pay $100 for this, to sit in first class on this flight that is going on a vacation, doesn't actually have anything to do with the business. Oh, now it's $1,000 on this thing. That's $10,000. It starts small and it gets big. Do not work with people who would compromise their integrity on small things, because you can be almost positive it's just a matter of time until they're willing to sell it for something bigger. If you're going to sell your integrity for something so cheap, so inconsequential, that's not a person you want to work with. Number two, one of the biggest red flags is slow and incomplete communication. So if you were working with somebody and and you're the one that's always reaching out, you're always over communicating, you're always left confused, you're always asking for more information, more details, it's never coming on the timelines in which you're expecting it. If it starts that way, you can be sure it's only ever going to get worse. Communication is the bedrock of a good partnership, whether that's a marriage or in business. If both people aren't coming to the table and proactively communicating and doing so in a good faith manner, quickly and responsibly and comprehensively, it's going to be a problem. So in the beginning of a partnership, if it's taking you longer than you like to get answers to the questions you're asking, or it seems like they're always dragging their feet or always having to pull teeth to get answers to your questions, run. It's not going to get any better. Number 3, do not work with somebody who never learns from the past. And this is actually a really hard one because when you first start a partnership, you maybe haven't known the person for very long. And so you don't have a lot of history to look back on and say, does this person have the ability to objectively look at what's happened in the past and contrast that with what they thought was going to happen in the past, and then realize that there's a delta between those two, right? A lot of times we make decisions in the moment, and then as time goes by and events unfold and we look back at the decision we made, we tend to retroactively rewrite the history of how we came to the decision or what we thought at the time. A good case point is, what did you think in August of 2022 about interest rates? Did you think they were going to go up over the next 6 months? Did you think they were going to go down over the next 6 months? I don't know what you really thought at that moment. All I know is looking back from where you are right now to there, you are likely to tint the decision or your belief in the decision that you made based off of facts you now know about what the market actually did. Okay? Most people don't have the self-awareness to look back and separate the decision that they made from what ultimately happened, the environmental variables that might have changed. We all create this revisionist history that is protecting ourselves, trying to make ourselves feel justified and go, oh, yeah, I knew that was going to happen, or that's exactly what I thought was going to play out. We give ourselves much more benefit of the doubt on this than most people even realize. And you start to see this if you keep an objective measure of your decisions through something like a decision journal, right? Where you can go back and you can actually look and see, what did I think about that decision? What did I think was going to play out? And then compare what actually did. Now, a great corollary to this is content like this. Content like this, where you are putting out a message, you're putting out an opinion at a particular point in time, right? And so if I had shot a video in August of 2022, you could go back and see what I said. And then you could compare it. Was he right? Was he wrong? Did he change his position? Did he change his opinion 6 months later as more facts became available? So that is an objective measure by which we can ascertain, did I make a good decision? Now, people that you want to avoid working with are the people who never learn from the past. Every time they look back to what's happened, they had this optimistic perspective, and then it didn't play out that way. And then they revised the history in their own minds to be in accordance with, that's what I always thought was going to happen. Here's how this plays out in a partnership. I think we should do this new initiative. I think this initiative is a great idea. There's going to be this market expansion and there's this many clients and we're going to be able to service it this way. We're only going to need to bring on these 3 new people. So our margins are going to stay flat, but we're going to increase our revenues by 3x, right? Cool. Thesis. Now let's execute it. We come back and it turns out, oh, you were all wrong. Revenue actually didn't grow. We didn't need these 3 people. We needed 10 people. Our margins actually got crushed and we didn't make more money at all. We actually lost money. Now, the person that you absolutely do not want to work with is the person who looks back at that situation and doesn't even acknowledge that they were wrong in the equation. They just kind of go to the next thing, and they never look back and they go, yeah, you know what? I was actually wrong about that. Here's what I got wrong about that. You do not want to work with somebody who never seems to learn from the past, especially if they're overly optimistic. It's okay to work with a negative person who's always wrong about the past, right? Because that means like it worked out better. But overly optimistic people who are always wrong about the past, or wrong about the future rather, that is a trouble. That is a massive red flag. It's going to get you into a lot of trouble because they're always going to continue justifying and saying, oh yeah, it's going to get better. It's always going to get better. So I have learned all 3 of these lessons the hard way over the years. And some of them I've had to learn multiple times, in fact, because I'm a slow learner. My hope is that by sharing this with you, you can avoid some of the mistakes that I've made in partnerships, and avoid one of the most painful aspects of business is that what happens when a relationship sours, things go south. And they do that sometimes. And you just have to be, willing to work through it and do the best that you can and take the lessons into the next endeavor and just do better. So take these lessons and go do better. I'll see you guys in the next episode.